Baseball cheated Matt Kemp twice. The first time, Ryan Braun won the 2011 NL MVP on PEDs. Kemp finished second. When Braun was suspended 2 years later, MLB said nothing. The trophy never moved. The second time cost him a lot more than a trophy. The Los Angeles Dodgers drafted a raw high school athlete in the 6th round of the 2003 draft out of Midwest City, Oklahoma. He wasn't a consensus top prospect. Instead, he was a massive physical powerhouse. Standing 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 210 pounds, Kemp was a center fielder with explosive range and a throwing arm that terrified opposing base runners. The Dodgers saw him as a franchise cornerstone. Within 5 years, he would prove them right, becoming absolute royalty in Dodger blue. By 2011, Kemp was delivering one of the most historically dominant individual campaigns the sport has ever witnessed. Have you ever seen a player carry an entire major league lineup on his back? Because that is exactly what Kemp did. Andre Ethier provided some stability, batting third in 116 games, but the rest of the lineup was in constant flux. The coaching staff cycled 12 different players through the second spot, and 4 different players rotated through the leadoff position. Despite this complete lack of protection, Kemp was an absolute physical titan at the plate. He hit .324, led the National League with 115 runs scored, total bases with 353, 39 home runs, and a league-leading 126 runs batted in. He fell just 2 steals short of the first 40-40-40 season ever, a mythical threshold of 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, and 40 doubles. He finished that year with 2 Gold Gloves, 2 Silver Sluggers, and the NL Hank Aaron Award. But how did he miss out on that historic 40-40-40 milestone? The answer lies in a single canceled game. On September 7, 2011, a game between the Dodgers and the Nationals was rained out in Washington, D.C. Because neither team was in postseason contention, the commissioner's office made the administrative decision to cancel the game entirely, leaving the Dodgers to play only 161 games. This single canceled game stripped Kemp of 4 critical plate appearances to hit his 40th home run. This missing game carried devastating consequences when the National League Most Valuable Player voting was announced. Kemp finished second in the MVP balloting to Milwaukee Brewers outfielder Ryan Braun, receiving 332 voting points to Braun's 388. Braun was awarded the trophy primarily because the Brewers won their division, while Kemp's Dodgers finished third. Yet Kemp statistically dominated Braun in home runs, runs batted in, runs scored, and total bases. The tragedy of this second-place finish became a scandal in 2013 when Braun accepted a 65-game suspension for his involvement in the Biogenesis performance-enhancing drug ring. Braun had initially escaped a suspension in early 2012 by exploiting a loophole. Once the Biogenesis records exposed his guilt, Skip Shoemaker declared that Kemp had been blatantly robbed, and Kemp himself admitted that the league should retroactively award it to him. Yet Major League Baseball chose to do absolutely nothing. Kemp had been robbed twice, first of the MVP trophy and subsequently of his own body. In December 2011, hoping to solidify him as the permanent face of their franchise, the Dodgers signed Kemp to a massive 8-year, $160 million contract extension. It was the largest contract ever awarded to an outfielder in baseball history at the time, representing an absolute bet on a sure thing. Yet, the ink on that contract was barely dry before the countdown clock on his physical body began. He was already owed something baseball never paid back. And what happened next made it worse. Players get hurt. That's baseball. But what happened to Matt Kemp wasn't just bad luck. It was a specific kind of damage that built on itself year after year until there was nothing left to build on. The question isn't why he got hurt. It's why he never fully got fixed. Before we walk through the injuries, understand what made them so damaging. Kemp wasn't fragile. He was explosive. The same attributes that made him great, his acceleration in center field and the violent rotational torque of his swing, were the exact mechanics that kept tearing him apart. Speed is load, power is stress. When an athlete operating at these physical limits experiences a localized structural injury, the entire body must adapt to redistribute the forces, creating a high probability of compounding failure. The physical undoing began on August 28, 2012 at Coors Field. While tracking a deep fly ball, Kemp sprinted backward at full speed, his eyes locked on the ball, and crashed violently into an unpadded section of the outfield wall. The impact resulted in a severe knee contusion and a torn left shoulder labrum, alongside a damaged rotator cuff. Before this, Kemp maintained an elite 988 OPS. Following the crash, his mechanical efficiency collapsed, and his OPS plummeted to 678. In October, he underwent major surgery to repair the torn labrum. This shoulder joint is critical for stabilizing the deceleration of a power swing. Kemp struggled to get through the ball because his left shoulder lacked its original strength. He later underwent a second shoulder surgery to debride his AC joint, but these procedures were mere patches on a joint that was already permanently altered. With his upper body compromised, the extreme forces of his swing shifted down his kinetic chain, targeting his legs. Throughout 2012 and 2013, Kemp suffered devastating hamstring strains on both legs, costing him multiple stints on the disabled list. These bilateral hamstring strains were symptomatic of a larger issue. His lower body was absorbing the compensatory forces of an altered swing. Each return revealed the same player trying to move the same way on a body that had been reassembled too many times. The surgeries weren't fixing him, they were patching him. The crisis peaked on July 21, 2013, when Kemp slid awkwardly into home plate. Initially diagnosed as a routine sprain, Kemp was encouraged to rehabilitate quickly. He rushed back, playing through persistent mechanical pain. But a subsequent MRI revealed a catastrophic stress reaction and cartilage chip in his talus bone, the major weight-bearing bone of the ankle. If that bone collapsed, his career was over. In October, Dr. Robert Anderson performed a complex microfracture surgery, drilling holes into the talus bone to stimulate fibrocartilage growth. But fibrocartilage is biomechanically inferior to natural cartilage. It's less elastic and wears quickly under high-velocity impact, permanently compromising Kemp's explosive lateral movement. Kemp returned in 2014, hitting exceptionally well in the second half, but his defense had completely vanished. He was forced out of center field. That December, the Dodgers traded him to the San Diego Padres, but the deal was famously delayed. The physical exam exposed severe bilateral hip arthritis and bilateral labral wear. The hip labrum is the core of a batter's rotational power. Decades of high-velocity swinging, combined with compounding structural compensations from his shoulder and ankle, had destroyed the cartilage in both hips. Labral tears in baseball players are common enough that the sport has developed a standard playbook for them. Kemp followed that playbook. So why did he come out the other side as a different player? Slower, less explosive, a shell of the defender he'd been? The answer tells us something uncomfortable about how baseball treats its stars. During the 2015 season in San Diego, Kemp flashed occasional remnants of his former brilliance, hitting 23 home runs and driving in 100 runs, but his physical regression was undeniable. His lateral movement in the outfield was severely limited, and by 2016, his body broke down yet again with another debilitating hamstring injury. Over the next several seasons, Kemp was traded like a financial liability from one franchise to another. First to the Atlanta Braves, then back to the Dodgers, then to the Cincinnati Reds, and finally to the Colorado Rockies. His statistical production didn't experience a single dramatic collapse. Instead, it declined in the slow, imperceptible way a building settles before collapsing all at once. Behind this slow-motion collapse lies a highly uncomfortable truth that sports medicine researchers and biomechanical experts have been asserting for years. Major League Baseball's standard return-to-play protocols are fundamentally broken. These medical guidelines are designed around getting high-profile players back onto the field as rapidly as possible, rather than ensuring complete physiological rehabilitation. The financial incentive structure of professional baseball, which is characterized by massive team payrolls, roster limitations, and intense public pressure, consistently forces players to return to high-velocity competition long before their connective tissues and joint cartilage have fully adapted and healed. Matt Kemp's entire career serves as a textbook, devastating example of this industry-wide failure. Yet, despite the obvious failure of his medical management, there was a profound and telling silence from the league's executives. No Dodgers executive ever sat down for an interview to explain the failures of their rehabilitation protocols, and no team physician published a medical postmortem detailing how a $160 million franchise cornerstone had been run into the ground. Kemp's historic contract was simply written off as one of the worst in Dodgers history, not because Kemp had failed, but because the medical and administrative systems that were supposed to protect him had absolutely no accountability for what happened when they failed. The question the league never answered publicly: was this preventable? Pull back for a second and look at the bigger picture. The cascading physical breakdown that Matt Kemp suffered, moving from a torn shoulder labrum to chronic hamstring tears and eventually to severe bilateral hip arthritis, is not just a collection of random unfortunate incidents. In the world of sports science, this has a highly specific name: a kinetic chain breakdown. The human body doesn't operate in isolation. It's a highly complex connected system of joints and muscles. When a player's shoulder is compromised, they can no longer generate bat speed using their upper body, so they begin to overcompensate by rotating their hips with extreme violent force. This places an unsustainable amount of torque on the hip joints, wearing down the cartilage. When an ankle joint is stiffened by microfracture surgery, the force of running is transferred directly up to the knees and hips. This cascading failure is something baseball has understood for decades, yet the league has repeatedly failed to address it for position players. In candid interviews after his playing career ended, Kemp has spoken openly about the devastating emotional and psychological toll of his physical decline. He described the surreal, painful experience of looking at old highlight reels of his historic 2011 season, staring at a physical marvel who simply no longer existed inside his own body. Imagine the mental weight of watching a tape of yourself running at elite speeds, knowing that the feet and ankles on that screen belong to you, but your current physical frame can no longer replicate those movements. This represents far more than a loss of athletic utility. It's a profound loss of personal identity. An athlete who has defined their entire life by their physical dominance is suddenly forced to confront a body that has been patched together too many times to function. Shockingly, professional baseball, as an institution, has absolutely no infrastructure or support systems to help its players navigate this devastating transition. This brings us directly back to that 8-year, $160 million contract extension signed in 2011. The Dodgers weren't just betting on Matt Kemp's raw talent. They were betting on the sport's capacity to keep him healthy. That massive bet was lost. In the years since, Major League Baseball has implemented load management, biometric motion tracking, and strict pitching limits. But here's the ultimate irony. Almost all of those medical and administrative systems were designed exclusively to protect high-value pitchers. For position players, the baseline expectation remains completely unchanged. They're still expected to play through the pain, manage the chronic discomfort, and grind out 150 games a year on unforgiving turf until their bodies completely break down. The system remains fundamentally broken, and the fix remains partial. We asked whether this was preventable. The honest answer is probably yes, in part, and definitely yes, if the sport had ever built systems for position players the way it eventually did for pitchers. Kemp's career is a monument to a gap baseball still hasn't fully closed. If this hit differently than a regular stats video, hit super thanks. It's the only way the algorithm sees these stories as worth telling. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.